Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to some of you and peace to the rest of you. This is Black Heart signing Black in again. And I'm going to cut right to it. You saw the title. Well, many of you were chomping at the bit. What's going to be the solution to this problem? So I'm going to come out with it. The solution is Islam. Many of you listening now are in shock. And you're saying, what did this nigga just say? So he gonna come with this Arab religion of these invader conquerors that came into the continent just like white folks did and had a slave trade just like white folks did and tell us that's the solution? No, I'm not telling you that the Arab slave trading culture is the solution. It's not it. Arab culture is different from Islam. As a matter of fact, Arab culture was the reason that they needed the Quran revealed to them, because their culture sucked, and it sucks again because the more they throw out Islam, the more their culture sucks without it. That's why. No, I didn't say Arab culture was. I said Islam is a solution. And I'm gonna give you a bit of historical context, because if you are black and you care about black people, you need to hear this. Now, if you don't care about black folks at all, then you don't need to hear it. Tune out. And if I see any of you in person later on, I'm not going to even mention this. I'm not going to single anybody out, walk up to any one person and say, look, you need to be Muslim or you're going to go to hell forever. That's not my style. Not only is it not my style, but hell, it's just not effective. No, I'm going to sit here and say this to you collectively as an audience. It is a solution to our problems temporally and spiritually. For everything that is not covered by a solution, a prevention is offered so that you don't need a solution later. And that's the reason why I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that if somebody got HIV and then they become Muslim, that they're going to be cured of HIV. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that. Now, what I will tell you is that if somebody got HIV, I'd still recommend that they become Muslim, because I do believe in a life to come. And if HIV turns into AIDS and kills them, or it doesn't, whichever one is the case, there's still going to be a day when they breathe their last like the rest of us, and they're going to stand in front of God. And they're going to breathe the last, they're going to go into a grave, and they're going to know that they're in a grave. And then there's going to be a day where there's going to be a day of resurrection, and they're going to be standing outside the grave, and they're going to have to go and stand in front of God, wait for their name to be called, and they stand in front of God and answer for everything they did and even believed. But that's a different story. Point is, if you got HIV AIDS or something else that's incurable and you become Muslim, you still gonna have it. I understand that. But the solution was in the prevention, and that was already offered. That was already offered. The solution was in the prevention. And if you took the prevention, then you didn't have to worry about a solution. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. But for many of the social and societal ills, yeah, the solution is there, even after you have not prevented it. And this is why I say that this is, in fact, the solution. Now, to give the historical context, some of you were saying, as I mentioned a while ago, well, look at what the Arabs did in Africa. No, that's actually not true. John Henry Clark was very astute. He was very accurate in most cases, but this was not one of those things about which he was accurate. Now, am I saying this because I'm Muslim? No, it's the opposite. I'm Muslim because I can say this. I found this information out before I became Muslim. And I even thought, well, you know what? If I don't accept Islam, but I tell people it's the truth, then that might be better, because then more of them would accept it, since I'm not Muslim and I'm endorsing Islam. So my own bias is not something they can yank out from under me and say, nope, this is the reason that I'd accept it. Of course you're going to say it, you're Muslim. But I'm selfish too. So I accepted it, and I'm still telling you that this is the truth. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and explain why I'm saying it. And those of you who have listened patiently, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and reward your patience. Number one, the Arabs did not invade Africa south of the Sahara. They went in as traders, but they could not invade. They could not have gotten armies through the Sahara like that, for one. They could not have gotten armies into the East Coast and going into Africa that way, evading the Sahara, because frankly, the Arab armies could not have beaten a bunch of black Africans, and they knew this. They never thought of Africa as a place whose armies they could beat, nor did they think of Africa as a place that was hostile to Islam. The Arab Bedouins were hostile to it. That's why they had to be conquered, and then they accepted it. Now the Arab Bedouin is a Muslim. Why? Because their ancestors got conquered. Now see, in Medina they accepted it, but those weren't Bedouins. Those were city dwellers. The Meccans were city dwellers as well, but they had to be conquered. And the Bedouins were Bedouins. They weren't city dwellers, and they had to be conquered. That's what happened. That's how it worked. It's always been this way. You go into Eastern Europe, they had to be fought but not conquered. And then some of them still wouldn't accept. Eastern Europe is divided between Christians and Muslims. Western Europeans, they never got conquered, and they were never going to accept anything coming from no brown desert people anyway. I don't have to tell you how white Western Europeans feel about Islam. Their bombs will tell you that themselves. Their policies will tell you that. But you go into Africa, tropical Africa, and if you go into tropical Southeast Asia, you'll notice, and you read the histories, the people there will tell you, nobody conquered us for us to become Muslim. If they had fought us, we wouldn't have known about the religion. We would have been too busy fighting. No, we learned about it from them. We said it's okay, it's true. We accepted it, and we surpassed them. This is something people don't tell you. You see, in West Africa, they built these universities that were so advanced, Islamic universities that were so advanced that Arabs were not fit to be students. They couldn't pass the entrance exams, but Africans could. This is true. This happened. There was an Arab guy from Northern Africa at the time. Well, he was an Arab guy living in Northern Africa, and he thought, I'm going to go into Western Africa and I'm going to help them out. And he got there and found out that he couldn't pass the entrance exam. He was a teacher in Northern Africa, and he couldn't pass the entrance exam to be a student in Western Africa. Black, tropical, wide-nosed, big-lip, blurple people have in West Africa. This is not something they came and gave to us and used to colonize us. This is something that we saw in them, and we took it and ran with it and beat them at it, excelled past them in. That's the truth of the matter. The Arab is not the role model for the rest of the Muslims. They never were. This has been known from the very beginning. The only ethnicities that are ever mentioned by name are the Persians, the Romans, the Jews, and the Arab Bedouins. And every time the Arab Bedouins are mentioned, they are insulted for about 2 or 3 verses, and then one verse will give credit to the minority of them that are as good as gold. That's how, look it up. Don't take my word for it. And that's what I want you to do. What I'm telling you now, I want you to look up. As a matter of fact, I recommend that you listen to this on your laptop rather than on your phone, so that you can listen and you can look up the information as I'm giving it to you. So now, I've said that Islam is a solution, and I've explained to you that contrary to what's been said in some of these pseudo-jiggable history books, Islam did not come in as a racist, colonizing Arab force. Are the Arabs racist? It depends on the nationality. Do they think they're white? Yes. But no. Arabs didn't do what white folks did to Africa. They never did. They didn't use Islam, and they didn't use anything else. And most of the Arab slave trade that went on in Africa actually predated Islam. That which went on afterwards was considered criminal, because slaves were mutilated outside of the borders of the Muslim empire. Then they were brought into the borders after the mutilations were done so that they wouldn't be prosecuted. But it was still considered a criminal act. And frankly, the scholars were not going along with this in many cases. The scholars said that at the end of the day, the slave trader was still a lowlife, and their words could not be trusted. That's what the scholars were saying. So anyway, now that we got that out the way, and you can look up Leon Ware as an example, and there's another scholar whose name I forgot that appears with Leon Ware, and they'll tell you they actually refer to records that show that a lot of these anti-Islamic charges were not necessarily true with respect to Africa. So now that that's been gotten out the way, let me go ahead and give some examples of why I say it's a solution. And, I'm not going to force anybody. I'm delivering a message and then I'm done. You do the research and double check behind me and find out. But I'm going to tell you straight up, and no, don't go asking no 5%er if I'm right or wrong. They're 5%er. You can ask them to double check and research behind me, but what I'm saying is that you ask a group that have a different religion, but they call themselves Muslims, these questions, they're going to tell you what they believe because of what they believe. I'm going to tell you what I believe because I did the research. That's why. Because I'm listening to those who have done the research. In other words, if I wasn't Muslim, I'd still be telling you that Islam is the solution. I'm not telling you Islam is the solution because I'm Muslim. I'm Muslim because I can say with full conviction that Islam offers the solutions. And where it doesn't, it offers the preventions for the individual, personally. Getting on with it. First of all, I'm talking to the black manosphere and the Negro manosphere. And I'm talking to the women that are disgusted by it. The black gender relation problem has a solution in Islam because frankly and simply put, the men and the women have rights and they have responsibilities. Each one has a fair share of both. Feminism tells you that women have rights, no responsibilities. Chauvinism tells you that men have rights and no responsibilities. A revelation from God tells you that each one has rights and each one has responsibilities. Which one you gonna go with? Yes, Islam is patriarchal. So goddamn what? But that's because the men have the responsibility. Yes, there's a verse that says that the men are raised a degree above the women because it is up to the men to provide and protect the women, to maintain and protect the women. That's the verses tell you this. The men are raised a degree above the women. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women. We got feminists in the Muslim community that love to quote that verse. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women, but they don't want to quote the verse that says men are raised a degree above the women. A degree for that purpose. They don't even want to quote that. You got chauvinists that want to say the men are a degree above the women, and they don't want to quote the part that says that the men are the protectors and the maintainers of women. Now, you see, that right there squashes the argument, should black men protect black women? Because the argument includes women saying, yes, 100% of black women should feel protected by 100% of black men. And black men are saying, you don't even respect black men, especially the ones who have a good character. Why are we responsible to protect most of you who would turn us away and wouldn't spit on us if we were on fire? Why are we responsible for that? You wouldn't cook for us. You wouldn't consider marriage for us. You certainly don't want to bend over most of our couches. No, you want to chase after the same few men that you're not asking to do anything and just have their babies and then give them to us to raise. We don't owe you that. Now you see, you introduce this revelation from God and both sides got to fuck the shuck up. And now you got God saying, look, woman, if you want a husband, you're going to have to get married to the men that I created. Not the men you fantasize about in your mind. No, these men here, real men with flaws just like you have, with weaknesses and limits just like you have. You get to choose between them. Superman is not available. I didn't create him. Not on this planet. And you're not perfect either with your flaws. And these men, they're going to have to choose from you women with your flaws and your weaknesses. And you can either use the love and mercy I placed between you naturally, or you cannot use it, wind up divorced, and maybe never married to begin with. Ladies, if you want the protection of these men, they're raised a degree above you. They're in charge. They're also responsible. You got your responsibilities to them, and they got their responsibilities to you if y'all want to make this work. That's what you've got God revealing to his prophets with an S, because this was revealed before Muhammad, peace be to him. Or you can continue, you can cast this aside, and you can go right back to the chauvinist and the feminist arguments, where each one says that they've got rights but no responsibilities, where each one says that they are owed but they don't owe anything. Now, that's what's out there. That's what we're looking at. These are your options. Some would say, well, look, if you're going to say that Islam is the solution, doesn't Christianity and Judaism say the same thing? What's the difference? Well, Christianity and Judaism may have a traditional type of patriarchy. I would have to ask this, though. I'm going to say this regarding both of them. Take Christianity, and you'll find that Europe claimed Christianity. They claimed it. I'm not saying they practiced it, but they claimed it. Then they practiced it to a certain extent. Just to the extent that they practiced it, they got held back. Europe had to leave the little bit of Christianity that they did practice in order to advance. Let's take Judaism. Well, the Jews were told that the temple was never going to be rebuilt. They were told that other revelations were going to come, i.e. the revelation that was given to Jesus, peace be to him, and the revelation that was given to Muhammad, peace be to him. That's what they were already told. So yes, did they get revelations from God? Yes, these two are based on revelations from God. But we can tell that they were changed around. Many of you are now going to say, well, wasn't Islam changed around? Didn't men tamper with that? Men mispracticed it, but men were not able to change the Quran. And men tried to fabricate hadiths and sayings of the Prophet, peace be to him. They tried to do that. But because the Quran told us that the previous revelations were tampered with, and they were never guaranteed divine protection to begin with, because they weren't going to be the final revelations from jump, that mankind could take care to preserve this one, and that it would be preserved anyway. That's what the Quran said. The previous ones were in fact changed. We never promised them protection anyway, because we were going to reveal to you this Quran, this final revelation, and this revelation we are divinely protecting, the Quran. Follow the example of your prophet. Now, when this was revealed in the Quran, you had people that began to write and record what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be to him, said and did. Why did they do it? Because they knew that the previous revelations had been tampered with, and what they wanted to do was prevent that. So when liars popped up and tried to say that Muhammad said X, Y, and Z and did X, Y, and Z, others were able to say, no, we didn't. He did not, because we spent time with him and we wrote down what he actually did say. Historians that came about preserving his sayings, they actually popped up in the generation after his death. And they went around and they asked the people who lived with him and who knew him, what did he do? What did he say? And then they would go and check with each other. And the ones for which they could find confirmation, they classified as correct. And they could tell which ones were fabricated after a while. And these fabrications were separated from the others. They were recorded as fabrications, but they were separated from the others. So no, this guidance was not tampered with. It is simply obeyed or disobeyed. That's it. These Arabs that you don't like, these Pakistanis you sick of, these Afghans that you sick of, and for good reason. But whom you use as an excuse to not follow any set of instructions are not walking around here changing the religion per se. They can't. What they're doing is they're simply either following it or they're not. That's what's going on. They may be confused about certain things. People do walk around and they quote fabricated hadith and they don't know to fabricate it. These are mistakes, but they can't actually go in and erase all records of what was revealed and what was not revealed. Nobody can do this. The Quran is the most memorized book in the world. If somebody tries to change it, a whole bunch of other people would have to memorize that change just to erase the human memory of what it used to be. And that ain't gonna happen. So, again, yes, I'm telling you Islam is a solution. Yes, I'm telling you Christianity and Judaism are insufficient to be solutions for black people. No, I'm not saying this out of hatred for anybody. Yes, I'm giving you the context for which I say it and why I say it. Yes, you can go back and you can check this stuff. Yes, you may learn more details than what I can remember right now to tell you. Yes, you could, if you do the research, yes, you will probably surpass me in knowledge of this. And I welcome that, because it would be a great honor for me to give this information right now when somebody comes back to me later and gives me more details of which I was unaware, and then I learn something from them. I am a teacher by trade, but when a student comes back and teaches me something new, I'm honored, because that student helps every student in the future that sits in front of me. If I teach something about English and a student is able to come and tell me something about the history of English or about a rule of grammar I wasn't aware of, or a rule of grammar that used to be the case and is not anymore, I'm glad, because if they can back it up and substantiate it and I can take their word for it, I can teach it to the other kids. And I can use it to make English easier for them to learn. But history is even more relevant. If I teach you some history and you come back and teach me some more details, you have helped every other student that's going to sit in front of me and learn some history. You will help people you've never met, and may God bless you for it. And I mean that from the bottom of my black heart. The other thing about this that makes it a solution is that, you see, as men, we may say, well, look at what these women are doing. And it's true. You got women in the West that are running around and they're hoeing, and they're picking up more body counts in men than men could possibly pick up in women. And it seems strange because you've got so many women with so few men, and yet you've got a few guys that are picking up these body counts with these women, and you got so many women that have high body counts in men because they're really sharing the same few men. But it's still enough for them. And then you got most guys out here with body counts. By the time they get married, they got body counts like 4. And you got women with body counts like 80. And you wonder, well, who are these dudes that are getting all this if most dudes ain't? Proving that the mate selection standard of Western women has been turned into that of other species, not humans. Well, the thing is that you got guys out here that will still stick it in a bunch of women. You got guys out here that will still stick it in 80 women if they possibly could. A few of them can and they do, and the rest of them could not and they do not. Well, when you introduce Islam, now you have male chastity also being valued just like female chastity. But by the same token, marriage is a priority, and marriage is not only for people above 30 years old either. Now, I'm not talking about what goes on in Arab countries or in Pakistan where people don't get to get married till they're in their late 30s sometimes. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is Islamically, what actually has been revealed. And what actually has been revealed is you don't fornicate, but marriage is a priority. It's half your religion. Yes, the woman has to approve. Yes, the man has to approve. One of the woman's male relatives has to approve of the guy, because men can read other men. If you can get 2 witnesses, a dowry, and a contract, and the approval of these parties, these 3 parties, then you have a marriage, a valid marriage. And when you have a valid marriage, that's not fornication, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. And as a matter of fact, the more the couple gets busy, the more good deeds they get. That is the difference. That's how this context goes. No, men going around and sowing their wild oats is not a part of the religion. That's not it. Women doing it is not a part of the religion. Yes, men can marry more than one wife. They can marry up to 4. They can't marry 5 at one time. They also have to treat these women equally. Ain't no side chicks. It's not the way that works. Now, some women would say, well, that sounds like it's chauvinist. No, that's not. Here's why. See, ladies, you have shown already in the Western context that you will chase after the same few men, and you will compete not only to get the same few men, you will compete to be the top woman, so that all others you can say are just side pieces. You got women fighting over who's the wife and who's the side piece, or who's the girlfriend and who's the side piece, over different ranks according to this man's ding-a-ling. A man could be using 2 women to satisfy his ding-a-ling, and they're set up here fighting over which one has his heart. Are you kidding me? This happens. Now, when you introduce polygyny, and yes, polygyny must be legal and polyandry must be illegal, but when you introduce legalized polygyny, what you'll find is many men will still marry only one wife, first of all. Secondly, the men who will marry 2, 3, or 4 have to be able to afford them, and they got to treat the women equally. And thirdly, the women don't have this to fight over anymore. Ain't no side pieces no more. If a man has a side piece and he actually sticks it in the side piece and you can prove it, he gets stoned to death. Islamically speaking, that's what happens. The man that cheats on his wife gets stoned to death, just like the wife who cheats on the husband gets stoned to death. That's what happens. End of story. Islamically speaking, there is no alpha Fs and beta bucks. That's not there. And here's the other thing about it. See, in this revelation, man is biologically an animal, but man is responsible more so than any other species is. So man cannot use other animals as a reason or as a justification. Now, man can use animals as an example of biology, but men cannot use animals as a justification or a role model to do things that are not moral. That's crossing the line. You can say, hey, look, gorillas got hands and fingerprints similar to ours, and their spleen and their anatomy is similar to ours, so there's a similarity of DNA. But you can't say gorillas do X, Y, and Z, so we're going to do it. Gorillas eat their own excrement sometimes. I was shocked to find this out. A gorilla might eat his own boo-boo in the wild. And I'm like, why? For them to be so similar to us, why would they do it? So you can't use him as an example. As a role model, I mean. It's not allowed. So you can't sit up here and say that we're animals. And what this means is, women, you cannot use other species as an example to justify you having the mate selection criteria of another species. You can't say, well, because the bighorn sheep in the Rocky Mountains only mate with the male that has defeated all the other males, that's what we women want and demand, and we're going to have that. Ain't enough men like that to go around. Plus, we're not bighorn sheep. We don't have to butt heads to be good husbands. If we engage in headbutting contests, that takes away from the man's ability to be a good husband. And also, the bighorn sheep that do mate also die first from brain damage. Y'all didn't know that. Other thing too, there are a few females among the bighorn sheep that sneak off and mate with the males that didn't win the contest. Guess what? They are the only reason that there's enough genetic diversity in the offspring of the next generation for the next generation to find mates, and all of them are inbred. If some of these females did not do this, go against the other females, they would inbreed themselves into extinction. So animals' instincts aren't always correct. And so with this revelation being introduced to the community and actually taken seriously, even though no one will practice it perfectly, but when it is actually taken seriously, then forget about the Arabs in the neighborhood that are setting a bad example, because they ain't following Islam anyway. You can forget about the Pakistani that's setting a bad example, because he ain't following it anyway. They're doing what they did because they're not following it, because they're not taking it seriously. That's why they're in the mess that they're in. Their countries are in the mess they're in, making them want to come to the United States because they did not follow their religion seriously. That's what the reason comes down to. Were they colonized by white folks? Yes, those are demons as a society. But did their societies never recover because they're Muslim? No, they never recovered because they were not Muslim enough. You have the opportunity to do exactly what was done in Africa. You see, there was tribalism in Africa, but many of them were not tribalist. However, the least tribalized societies in Africa, the most united parts of Africa, were the Muslim parts, because the Mandinka were Muslim, the Hausa were Muslim, the Fulani were Muslim. There is no taboo on intermarriage between them because they're Muslim. So if you want to meet someone that is multiple tribes, just like we're multiple tribes, you probably want to get with the Muslims, because the Muslims, you can meet a Mandinka, but his grandmother was a Fulani. You can meet a Hausa, but his grandmother was a Fulani. Or you can meet a Fulani, but his grandmother was a Hausa or a Mandinka. And I'm just using these three tribes as examples. You still got the Wolof, you've got the Bambara, you've got the Serankule, also called the Soninke, you've got the Serer people. These are Muslim tribes. There's a tribe called the Maroons, actually, believe it or not. You got these folks, and they could marry each other easily without a problem. If they could find a common language to communicate in, and Africans in general, Muslim or not, are linguistic geniuses. So the point I'm making is that the most intertribal marriages would have occurred between the Muslims. Not the only, I'm not saying that, but the most. So you want to meet the most detribalized Africans? That's the African Muslim. I met a woman. Oh, she was fine too. Boy, if I wasn't planning on already marrying who I'm planning on marrying, I probably would have said, hey, you got a husband? Do you need one? Oh, she was gorgeous. She didn't wear the hijab, and I was about to forget that that's a problem. I met a family actually, and they were Bambara, and that's one of my mother's ancestral tribes. Now the Bambara, I never heard them speak Bambara before, so I didn't know the language and what it sounded like. I asked them what the language was because I honestly thought it was an East African language. I just didn't know. So I said, Assalamu alaikum, bro, excuse me, man. What language is that y'all are speaking? What's the name of it? And he said, Bambara. I was shocked. I was like, wait, that's one of my mother's ancestral tribes. That's what Bambara sounds like? And then, so I asked him 2 words. How do you say, how are you and thank you? I forgot how to say it. But one of the ladies came up. She said, do you speak Bambara? And I said, no, I'm just learning from your relative right here, right now. But I didn't know that Bambara sounded like this. And I said, so what other languages do you speak? English, Bambara, and what else? And she said Lingala. Now, Lingala is spoken in the Congo. I said, oh my goodness. So wait a minute, you from like this part of Africa way over here and you speak another language spoken way over there. That is amazing. How'd you even pick it up? And she said, you hear it spoken enough times, you start to speak it. I said, oh my goodness, that is amazing. That is mind blowing. Oh, and she looked good too. So see what I'm saying? Bambara is spoken in Mali. Lingala is spoken in the Congo. Look at a map and see how far apart they are. And stick a map of the United States in between them. Do you understand now? I mean, there's so many international borders between these 2 countries, so many other countries between them. Now, do you understand how amazing that is? That's the Muslim. So if you are a Pan-Africanist, you ain't found nothing more Pan-African in practice than Islam. And when they don't learn the Arabic language, they still learn each other's languages. So at the end of the day, you ain't gonna come along and tell people, I'm a Pan-Africanist and Islam ain't black enough for us. No, the Arabs aren't black enough for you. Get it right. Islam was not revealed only to the Arabs or only to us or only to Europeans. It was revealed to mankind. That's what it was revealed to. And I know a lot of you ain't gonna agree, but I'm still gonna deliver the message. And then the blood is off my hands. At the end of the day, I don't want you to take my word for it. I'm giving you the information. I want you to go back behind me and check and see. But I want you to check with unbiased sources. You can check with Leon Ware and another scholar. Yes, they're Muslims. But like I said, they're not going to tell you how actually Islam didn't destroy Africa because they're Muslims. They are Muslims because they learned how Islam was not responsible for destroying Africa. That's what happened. Check with Abdullah Hakim Quick. Yes, he's Muslim too. The man ain't biased. He'll tell the truth. He'll tell you the truth about what Muslims are doing today. That's how you'll know that he's not biased. Ask him about history and he'll tell you how good Islam was for Africa. Go to the Muslims in Africa and ask them about it and they'll tell you the same thing. Because if it was bad, they would have left it. You could sit up and say, well, look what Christianity did to Africa, and they haven't all given up on Christianity. No, they have not, but they had to change Christianity and try to re-Africanize it. They did do that. The Congo was an excellent example. It was the first example. They had to make these changes. Why? Because they knew that what was being told to them wasn't black enough. They knew this. That's the difference. So even in order for some of them to accept Christianity, they had to Africanize it. The Congolese people, when the Portuguese were teaching them Catholicism, they listened and then they said, wait a minute, Bethlehem, that was in Africa. Jesus was an African, Mary was an African, Joseph was an African, and God is black. These are the things they had to say. They were able, that's because when the Portuguese said, look, there's only one God, the Congolese said, you know what, that rings true. There's only one God. That hits us to the core. We accept that. And then they started with all this other stuff, and the Congolese said, wait a minute. So there's only one God, but we don't matter to him at all? Are you serious? So you mean there's only one God, but he had to send you to tell us this, even though you don't see us as equal? Well, why would God send you if you don't think that we're equal? No. God sent black prophets. Where are they? Well, guess what? To the people in the Congo, let me tell you, a lot of the prophets were actually black, and none of them mentioned by name were white. Were there white prophets? Sure, but none of them mentioned by name were white. So in actuality, those of you in the Congo listening or from the Congo who can hear this, you need to know actually that It's just unfortunate for you that the Portuguese came to you first before any Muslims reached you. But the reason that the Portuguese came to you first was because West Africans told them, don't you come here trying to preach that Catholicism stuff. We already got a revelation that was given after the one you're preaching to us. We already got the updated version. You don't come to me with Windows 7 and tell me it's the latest thing and I got Windows 10 on my computer. What are you, stupid? Don't do that. That they told them not to. So the Portuguese asked them, okay, well, where are the areas that are not Muslim? And they pointed to the southeast of themselves. And they said, they're not Muslim. Why do you ask? And the Portuguese said, thank you very much. We'll be on our way. And they went over there, tested out, see if they're not Muslim. They found out they're not. And then they started preaching Catholicism. So in other words, they went to you specifically because the Muslims hadn't gotten to you yet. That's all it was to it. Nothing else. That's the only reason that the Portuguese went there and started preaching Catholicism. So when your ancestors felt the need to change Catholicism, they felt the need to change Catholicism because they had enough sense to know that there was something missing in it. Had Islam reached them first, that same sense would have been used to say, wait a minute, yes, you know what, this actually comes from a God that's not even human. So God ain't got to be black or white or anything else. He ain't human. That's God. But for us, we're getting this message from someone that understands it. Excellent. Great. It makes sense. Perfect. Yeah, you know what? You got this guy over here with 8 wives, but he can't take care of them all. So you limit it to 4. That's exactly what a God would do. That's just one of the things he would do to take care of this. You know what? Look over here. You got these folks and you got this group over here that doesn't circumcise themselves. And we know them as having dirty genitals. So yeah, circumcise the babies. Stop waiting until until they're 14 and 13 and making that a rite of passage. No, that's not the way this works. You can circumcise a baby and they sleep through it. Go ahead and circumcise the baby then. And these are just the everyday things of life that would make more sense. Now you come along and you factor in the parts of life that affect every day, but they're not done every day. Like getting married. You get married once, but you're married for the rest of your life. You get married, but then you stay married. An everyday thing that is affected by a one-time event. As an example. Or drinking. It's not something people do every day, but it affects every other day that they don't drink. So that's cut out. You know what? Done with that mess. It's an intoxicant. You don't know what you're doing? No, you don't oppress and suppress your own intellect like that and make yourself that vulnerable to the forces of nature and even the whims of people. Don't do it. Leave that mess alone. So you see, it's a way for people, it's a way for human beings to live. But Western Europe has shown they don't want to live it, and they don't want you to live it either. So I'm not out here preaching to them. That's not how it works. You plant your seed in fertile soil and they are barren. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the people who I actually want to see go free one day. And the people I want to see remain free once they go free and not become oppressors themselves like the ones from whom we have to escape. That's what I want to see. I want this for you. So I'm preaching it to you. In other words, even if you disagree with me, I'm not telling you this because I hate you. I'm telling you this because I love you. Because I want what is better for you. After what our people have been through and we've been through more than enough of it, I want you to have a relief from it. I want it to be over. And that's why I'm telling you what I'm telling you. And that's why I'm not going around here trying to tell just the women to become Muslim. No reason for me to go around and tell just the women. Because honestly, if they became Muslim, who they going to marry? And ain't no men becoming Muslim. Who they going to marry? The Arab Muslim guy? He don't want black women. We've already covered that. We've discussed it, and I know that. There are those who do, but they wouldn't admit it. Because when you leave black men in general, you will find that, as I've said before, men in general would choose the women they want for themselves, and they don't let other men make the choice for them. Not to the extent women do. However, and I've mentioned this before, however, if you want to compare different groups of men with regards to this, it is black men, both in Africa and the Caribbean and in the Americas, North and South. It is black men because our women have such a wide range of appearance because of the DNA that we have being original. Black men are the least likely to let another man come along and tell them what to like. We're the least. And that's not a national thing. That's a racial thing. African-American men don't let other men come along and tell them that. They may let a man come along and say, she fine, ain't she? Yeah, sure. But he doesn't let another man come along and tell him what's supposed to move his ding-a-ling. In Africa, it's the same thing. One man could be married to a skinny woman and he's happy. Another man could be married to a big woman. They may prefer big women in certain parts of Africa. Okay, well then they marry big women. If a man marries a skinny woman, other men don't get up in his face, why you married a skinny woman? What's wrong with you? No. I knew a guy, women loved to look at him, but they wouldn't talk to him. It was funny, right? He was dating women that didn't look as good as him. His boy said, bro, look, these women are not that good looking. What are you doing? These men came along and said this. But hey, look, at the end of the day, they would say, if she treats you right, I'm not going to mistreat her. And I'm not going to do nothing wrong to her. As long as she treats you right, she and I cool. Do I think you can do better? Yeah. But I got nothing bad to say about it if she treats you well. It's up to you. Are you happy, bro? And he'd say, yeah, I'm being treated well. And we'd say, okay, fair enough. All right. And that would be the end of it for us. But now you mess around here and you go into other races, and there are certain things for which they can be embarrassed easily. But in Africa, certain parts of the continent, they like women big. And if a man gets a skinny woman, other men ain't going to make fun of him for it, and he ain't going to let it happen. We're better about other men than this. You take an Asian man and introduce him to a big woman, a big Asian woman. He'd be like, man, even if I like her, I'm not going out in public with her like that. She big. What's wrong with you? He's not going to do it because that's a certain type of shame he's not going to face. You mess around, you take these European women. You got a lot of white guys that actually like big women, but they ain't going to be seen out in public with them because it's an embarrassment to them. That is actually shameful to them. So, you know, the chubby chasers, but only in private. Brothers are like, look, if I like them big, I like them big, and they chase them in public. If they like them skinny, they like them skinny, and they chase them in public. That's how brothers be doing. You go into Latin America, and I'm not really sure what embarrasses them. I'm not sure. I don't know. What in a woman would embarrass a man to be seen out in public with her, other than some kind of defect? I'm really not sure what that is. But you get the idea of what I'm saying. And to tie this back into why I said that Islam is the solution, at the end of the day, it comes down to this. When it comes down to what women are looking for, when it comes down to what men are looking for, in many parts of the Muslim world that are not black, the men don't want black women, or they don't want to be seen out in public with them. A lot of them actually see gorgeous black women on TV, and they'll tell me, look, man, they're gorgeous. But, you know, everybody says they're ugly. So they don't want to be seen out in public with them. So if I go and I tell only the women, who's left for them? The Arab Muslim guy, the Pakistani Muslim guy, the Afghan Muslim guy? These men ain't going to marry no black woman and have kids with them in many cases. A few would, but for the most part, they won't. And the ones who would are going to catch flack from their families. That's real. They can marry a fat woman that's not black and catch less flack from their family than marrying a fine woman that's black. That's the truth of the matter. They would be embarrassed to be seen out in public with a black woman in many cases. Even though their friends would fuck the shuck up, even though one of the princes in this country is famous for his, he was before he passed away, he was famous for his preference for black women. Guess what? He had a bunch of sons, black sons. It was his white son that succeeded him. So, you know, they've got it in their minds that they're not black. Even though we can look and see they are, they got it in their minds they ain't. So why would I go and tell these sisters, look, you need to accept Islam for your salvation? That's for the soil. But I'm telling brothers and sisters, because at the end of the day, we still need each other. We still need our own community. Now, can we save it? Probably not. I don't think so. But can we build another one? That's up to you. And if you do build another one and you want it to survive, believe you me, it will survive either until Judgment Day, or it will survive until you stop practicing Islam and taking it seriously. Now you become a half-baked, half-assed Muslim like these Arabs and these Pakistanis and the Afghans that we like to talk bad about, look down on because of how they look down on us. Then yeah, any community that does that is going to go through it. Look what's happening in Pakistan now. People are willing to spy on their mothers and fathers and turn them into the police if it'll give them a chance to get a visa to go to the UK or the US. They want to fit the guck out of Pakistan. They don't like living there. It's terrible for them. And if somebody leaves Pakistan, they will do anything to stay in the other country in which they get to. They will anything. Take a look at Egypt. Their Islam is weak in Egypt. You know what? You get an Egyptian out of Egypt, they will do anything to stay in another country and never go back to Egypt. They will sell anybody out to do it. I know because there's a story of a guy that did that in the United States. As a matter of fact, when you hear about the FBI busting somebody and that person's on TV like, man, I didn't do nothing. What are they talking about? Usually what happened was that the feds knew all they had to do was get to somebody from Pakistan or somebody from Egypt. Go to them and tell them you're in trouble with your immigration status. You need to cooperate with us. Now tell us who's planning what. And that person knows they better make up something if they don't want to get deported. And that's how the FBI gets these cases, if you really want to know the truth. Because these countries are in such bad shape, people can't stand living there. They can't stand each other. They'll do anything to make that quick buck. It's corrupt, and they're tired of it. If you're an honest person, you're going to be held back because the corrupt are always going to get ahead of you. The wicked are always going to get ahead of you. That's how it works over there. So if you're going to practice Islam the way they're doing it, you're going to get the same result. But see, we have the opportunity to start off fresh. We got that chance. Do we need to leave the U.S.? Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to advocate that without any shame. Yes, we need to leave the U.S. Can we all go to the same place? Absolutely not. No, that's not possible. I don't know of one country that could absorb us overnight like that, and we're 40 million. Now, can we go to the same few places? Sure, why not? Africa's big. There's no one African country that could take us all in 40 million overnight, but can the continent take us in over several months? Yes. Yes, it could. The continent could. Would the continent be in as bad of a shape if we went back with our skills? No, it would not be. So yes, I'm telling you Islam is a solution. And yes, I'm telling you repatriation is the other half of it. And I've given some of the things that, I've already mentioned some of the things that would help you out. Now, if you don't, here's the other thing. If you don't believe me, look up Kaolack, Senegal. Look up Medina Baye, Senegal. Medina, you know how to spell, but then Baye is spelled B-A-Y-E. Look up these places and see about the African Americans that have already gone to these areas. African Americans who became Muslim and already went to these areas. Look it up. And you'll see that there were some African Americans who became Muslim and they went to these areas. Sometimes they went to study and they came back to the U.S. and sometimes they went over there and they stayed there. They found a job and a way to make a living there and they stayed over there. Go there, look these places up and see. If you want to know what happens when black folks do accept Islam and then leave and break this attachment to plantation America, these are places you can start looking at. That's real. Now, in the 1920s, there were some African Americans who became Muslim and they preceded Elijah Muhammad and his nothing of Islam. That's a different religion. But there were some who became Muslim, and they went to Cairo and to Turkey. They wound up going back to the States because Cairo and Turkey at that point weren't ready to they weren't ready to take them in. They couldn't find jobs and they had to fight the language barrier. That was the reason. But nowadays, with infrastructure worldwide being better than what it was before, check it out. Check it out and see. It's different nowadays. You got a skill that they can use somewhere else in the world. They'll pay you for that skill. You learn that skill and you go over there and you collect. And that's real. That's the truth of the matter. So some guys say, well, the army made a man out of me. No, white folks ain't gonna make a man out you. It's not the way that works. That's not the way that's gonna work. Dads make a man out of you. You can't trust a white man's institution to make a man out of a black man intentionally. If they do, it was an accident and in spite of who they are, not because of. Now, they could teach you to be more useful. That's true. But you can't look to them for that. And some guys from the Dom game division, they like to point that out. You go into the military, black man. Now, you go into the military to learn certain survival skills. You can't go in there to learn manhood as a whole because they won't teach you that. I mean, if I want you to be my tool, I'm not going to teach you manhood and humanity. It's not the way I would do it. I teach you skills that could help both of us, but that's it. I would teach you skills that make you a better soldier. It's simple. Why? Because I want you to do this for me without me having to pay for your upkeep and maintenance while you're in the field doing it. That's all. Oh, okay. So I'm cheapening the price of you doing this hard work for me abroad and advancing my cause. No. That's a win situation for them while you take the risk. But if you live, you have these survival skills. Great. Okay, so that's a different story. But learning manhood from them? No. If you study this faith, you understand manhood. If you study, if it can't be your own father, and many of us could actually, but if it can't be your own father, you can study your granddad, your uncle, someone, and you can learn manhood. You can grasp it. You can get a notion of it. If you don't live with your dad, but you visit him and you study him when you visit him, you can learn manhood. I've seen it. It's happening with my own son, with whom I never got the chance to live, but I visited every chance I got. And he's beginning to study men and understand manhood better than anybody would have expected. I'm telling you now, folks, go behind me, do the research. Don't take my word for it. But Islam is the solution. If it wasn't, I would not have told you so. And I'm not telling you this because I'm Muslim. Again, like I said, I am Muslim because I can tell you this with full conviction. Now, I'm not going to force any of you. I'm not going to mistreat anybody because you disagree. I've delivered the message. The blood is off my hands. I hope that this has been a benefit to you. Assalamu alaikum to some of you again. Peace to the rest of you. Black heart sign and black out.